second. Hey everyone, welcome to another KE Report webinar. I'm your host, Corey Fleck, and in this webinar, we are featuring Northern Vertex Mining, trade on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol NEE, and on the OTC markets under the symbol NHVCF. I am chatting with the president and CEO, Michael Allen. Now, as I mentioned, everybody will have the opportunity to ask questions throughout this webinar. We have already received a number of questions, and I will be interjecting those questions throughout this presentation that Mike is going to be giving us. Mike, before we get into the presentation, though, let's just provide a general overview of what we're going to be covering here, because at Northern Vertex Mining, there are two assets, one an operating mine, the Moss Mine, and also the Hercules project. That is more of an exploration focus. Mike, just take us through what you want to be presenting here in this webinar, please.
Yeah, today we're going to be largely focusing on the Moss, which is more of the flagship asset of the company. This is the production asset. This is actually a pretty good slide to start with. Here in the foreground, you've got the active mining operation. This is the west pit where we're at. You can see the trucks actually working. Over here, this is one of our capital projects. This is the 3A leach pad. And then over here in the background, this series of outcrops over here, this is one of our exploration targets. This is the West Oatman target, and then there's another exploration target over here that will be that we touch about a little bit as well. So it's a general overview on Moss, then we touch a little bit on Hercules, and that's the way that this presentation is structured today.
All right. Oh, let's get moving into it then, Mike. Again, everyone, send me your questions, but I already do have a lot, so I am going to be interjecting those in here. But let's kick this off and move through it, please.
Okay, here we go. So obviously, read the statements and the forward-looking statements at your leisure. I will be making forward-looking statements throughout the course of this presentation. This is going to be more of an introductory sort of presentation on Northern Vertex and Moss. A lot of people in the industry and in the investment community didn't know a lot about Northern Vertex. In terms of the more recent history, there was the merger between Northern Vertex and Eclipse that got completed in February of 2021. We've since brought in new management. I was put in as president of the company. A lot of the Vertex, the Eclipse people crossed over. Dr. Warwick Ward, who was our VPX at Eclipse, came over. And what we're doing right now is we're putting our mind to unraveling the potential of the Moss and really creating value for shareholders through the exploration bit. So there's going to be a lot of talk about the Moss Mine, what we see around it. The Moss is an asset that I've looked at for about 10 years off and on. Always liked the potential of it. And the catalyst for wanting to get involved with it was about a year ago. There was a permit granted that allowed for effective exploration on a more district scale property, really evaluating the project and being able to articulate the true scale of it to the market. So that's what we've been focusing on in our last little while, and we'll continue to focus on going forward. Oops, going the wrong way. So obviously it went through the introduction, the overview, and then we'll do the updates on the execution, and then obviously the Q&A, and Corey's going to be interjecting throughout the presentation. So what is Northern Vertex? Well, obviously, as I said, we're a US-focused Western US gold producer. We've got a pretty strong group of individuals managing the company. We quasi refer to that as the billion-dollar clubs, companies that have gone from essentially nothing to more or less $1 billion market cap. The Vertex assets, obviously there's two assets, the Moss Mine and the Hercules exploration project in northwestern Nevada. We recently staked a bunch of ground around the Moss in Arizona. We quadded the land package, and that gives us sort of first mover status. We were able to essentially, without competition, stake a large land package, nail down the district. And this is similar to what we did in another company that I was running. This is what we did at Northern Empire on the Hercules, on the Sterling. First mover on the Sterling, took a 55 square kilometer land package, tripled it. Obviously, we did the transaction there with Coeur. So it's a tried and tested business model. In terms of the team, the quote unquote, the $1 billion club, we're led by Doug Hurst, who was part of the founding team at Newmarket, which got sold out to Kirkland Lake Gold. He was part of Empire with me. Doug is also on the board of Newfound Gold. A few other great names in here. Ray Threlkel just joined the board. He was Barrick for a lot of years. He put about 10 million ounces of gold into production in various places around the world. Galliano is Marcel de Groot. And we've got two large shareholders, which are Greenstone and Mavericks. And those are represented by Mike Haworth is Greenstone and Jeff Burns is Mavericks.
Mike, one quick question regarding this management team. I've had a few questions come in that said, look, there was a transition here when the combination happened between Northern Vertex here, and the old management went out. The new management came in and they said there were a lot of opportunities here. What is that new strategy that the new management has brought to this? Because in all fairness, there were some arguments that old management at Northern Vertex just weren't marketing the story properly, weren't getting in front of the right investors.
Well, that is part of it. I mean, there is an opportunity, and actually, if you look at the track record of particularly myself and Doug, we find forgotten assets and bring them out into the market. You look at the Newmarket story. The Fosterville mine was a forgotten asset in Australia. They brought it out, brought it to the market, showed what the asset actually could be, ultimately made that transaction to Kirkland Lake for $1 billion and went off, and that became more. They did it again, Doug and the team over at Calibre, forgotten asset within a B2 down in Nicaragua. I did it finding the forgotten asset that was the Sterling within Imperial Metals, brought that out to the market, made a big one for shareholders. So finding these forgotten assets, these things that are not well recognized in the market, bringing them out, doing the promo or the work to articulate what the value is, that is a good pathway for creating value for shareholders. I would say that one of the key distinctions between the old management team and the new management team at Vertex is the technical expertise. And I'm going to highlight this guy right here. I would say he's probably top 20 geologists on the planet, my opinion. He is a brilliant geologist, and what his mind brings to unraveling both Hercules and Moss, and being able to effectively test targets and really get the geological understanding of what the potential is and how to effectively test it. That's a key difference between where we are now and where we were 6 months ago with Northern Vertex.
Okay, thank you. I hope that addressed that question. Let's move on now.
Okay, perfect. There's a rule in business that the people that have, the people that make money will be the ones that continue to make money. This is just an example of that. We've got multiple takeouts, both in terms of selling out the companies out here to create liquidity for shareholders, or building from essentially 0 to $1 billion, 20 million to 2 billion, and so on and so forth. These are all stories that our management team has been intimately involved with, and creating a large value for shareholders and liquidity. Liquidity is important because it allows shareholders to take money off the table. You can make a paper win with an illiquid stock. Stock goes from a penny to a dime, but you can't actually trade it out because there's no buyers. These companies are liquid and large, and so that's one of the ways that we also create wins for shareholders. If somebody wants to sell, they can get out.
So Mike, there is another question. We should just address it now. ever since the merger, the share price has unfortunately drifted lower. Any comments on this drop in share price, what that could be due to, why there has been so much selling pressure on the stock initially?
Well, I actually we just did a board meeting and did a peer review of us versus the other small producers population. Everybody has languished, and that's been a real challenge in the last little while for the industry. I think that there's a certain amount of risk off. We're seeing that in the gold tape right now. In terms of the actual specifics, as for Vertex, there were two sets of shareholders that were coming together. It was liquid, and we are having people that were taking money off the table. It's just both a sentiment and a sector thing. But when I compare us to our peers, the smaller producers, we're middle of the pack. So I don't think that we're being unfairly punished. I think it's just a sectoral downturn right now.
Yeah, fair enough. We do see that too sometimes when you bring together two sets of shareholders, right? And some of the shareholders, I think, and the shareholders in Northern Vertex, they were there for the mining. Eclipse was bringing in the exploration, right? So there is that balance in terms of what shareholders want. Can you address that too in terms of catalysts on the mining and exploration front?
Yeah, I mean, part of what we've been addressing with the Moss mine is it was a there needed to be more of a plan put together, and what we're working on right now is we're getting on a technical report and coming out with a mine plan that'll articulate the near term what's going to happen down at Moss. We're going to weave that in with the exploration upside, start to be able to articulate what the resource expansion can be, and start to look at the potential, and then bring out a more layered approach as the more property scale potential there. So we're going to be building value in three ways: stabilizing and articulating a clear plan for what's going to happen over the next several years at Moss. We're going to be able to point at the future of resource expansion and ultimately mine expansion. And then also the greenfield exploration is being able to say, okay, now we've got this district 168 square kilometers. What else can we find out there? And then there's a lot of low-hanging fruit to be explored around the mine.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mike. Let's move on.
No worries. Again, going the wrong way. Sorry, there's just a bit of a lag here. Yeah. In terms of the company and the assets, we are in the Walker Lane. So, and this has been my career. So I've been involved with several projects in here. This is the Sterling where we were before. Hercules is about an hour outside of Reno, and the Moss is about an hour and a half outside of Las Vegas. One of the things that I like about this part of the world is as amazing as all these deposits that are there, this area is relatively uncompetitive relative to some of the other trends in Nevada. And you can find deposits that are outcropping at surface and really be able to consolidate and get yourself a good sized land package. It's becoming more competitive now because we had the success at Sterling. Other groups are having success. Equinox down at Castle and Mesquite, but we were able to stake 100 square kilometers around Moss with virtually no competition. So going forward in terms of the Moss mine, previous picture was taken from here overlooking this leach pad, and then the 3As over on this side. The Moss is a fairly straightforward open pit heap leach mine. The vein that we're exploiting goes through right around about here. The thing that is really interesting is that the exploration is relatively straightforward. There's not a lot of vegetation. There's not a lot of cover. A lot of the mineralization outcrops at surface, so you can get a pretty good comfort level of this. The mineralization continues here and then becomes the sort of hill that's hidden behind the graphic here. This is the West Pit, the early days of it. What we're looking at here is that we've got about 5 kilometers of strike length the Moss vein that needs to be explored. And on the back of an envelope, the historic resource, which was put out in 2019, about 1,500 meters of strike length gave a 500,000 ounce resource. I think it's 380,000 ounces of measured and indicated and 120 of inferred. But with that 5-kilometer strike length, you get an idea of the potential. And that's just the one vein. You can see in the previous graphic that I was showing, there was a vein that's now behind me. There's another one out here, and there's multiple parallel veins and a whole structural regime that we need to be exploring. But a lot of targets in the area for unlocking really significant upside potential on the Moss project.
So Mike, I've received actually a few questions regarding the move through an updated resource, what that looks like, when that could happen, and what the process would be of potentially multiple resource updates, or if you're just going to do one big one after all the drilling's done. Any insights here?
The drilling continues. So we cut the data off to do the resource. And we just had to draw a line in the sand. We continue to get results out. And then there's going to be multiple updates. So again, that goes to what we were talking about earlier. This upcoming technical report is talking about more or less the next 4 or 5 years of the Moss mine and starting to articulate the future of it, where it's going to go. Then there's going to be more drilling that updates as to how big that, a resource expansion on top of what we have in terms of the near term. And then we might see a third technical report when we start to get into more of the property scale. So to answer your question specifically, you're going to see almost a quasi-annual resource update technical report update of coming out with the company.
Okay, thanks. What would you guys be happy with in terms of a resource update? I know that's hard to ask or hard to answer, but give us a general overview here, what you think, what's possible.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to nail it down. A lot of the resources are still open. So really where we get to, I don't know. I think that what we're trying to in the near term articulate, Corey, is that this is going to go to a multi-million ounce potential. We've been relatively confined in our drilling. We've been working around the mine and essentially doing an infill. So we're going to see a modest increase in the resources, and then we're going to start pushing for a big resource expansion, and that'll come out in 2022. So you'll see a small resource expansion, a stabilization, a mine plan put together, and then more of a step back, lean out, and start to move forward with a large resource expansion in the next round.
Okay, you mentioned mine plan there. Will this resource drastically affect, say, Q4 production planning? That was a specific question.
I don't think that it's going to. It takes a long time to even for a small mine like the Moss. It's a long time to steer a battleship. So in terms of twisting and pivoting, I don't think that Q4 is going to allow us enough time. But Q1 maybe next year of allowing a new mine plan to be put together and start to be implemented. We're phasing ourselves into the west pit, so that's going to be a high tonnage scenario. There are some opportunities that the drilling has recently identified. It actually is right about here. We put out a news release. We call this the high wall between. This is the center pit. That's the east pit, and there was a gap in the drilling here. We popped a half dozen holes for the sake of the argument into this area, and that was our most recent new exploration news release. Good grades. What you're going to see is eventually this all becomes one significant pit. We also have a gap between the west and the center pit and the west pit. That's going to be addressed with further drilling. So we're going to see one large pit, the west center east pit nomenclature is probably going to go away. It's just going to be the Moss pit and being able to put the resources for all of that together. And then you'll see the pits expand further to the west and to the east.
Okay, perfect. One final question. All just came in from Sean. He wants to know general time frame. What quarter next year will that bigger resource update be?
Oh boy, I would say Q2 is a good guideline for potentially Q3. We got to get together this week actually and have our exploration meeting and plan out how quickly, and then it comes into an issue of lab turnaround, how much drilling we need, how much assay time that we need, but Q2 or Q3 of next year.
Okay, there you go, Sean. There's your question answered. Mike, let's move on.
Perfect. So this is where I get excited about this. So this is the mine right here, and you've got a series of veins that are extending out to give us this overall strike length, 5.5, 6 kilometers, parallel veins. And then there's really is a very interesting exploration upside to it. We've done 7 holes into West Oatman here. The outcrop that we were looking at in the first graphic is in this part of the world. What we're seeing here, the sort of the blobs of different colors, this is a hyperspectral analysis. This is actually giving us a good indication that there's another system, obviously here and there and there. We've also got structural indications of that there's something that is going on here. Good surface sampling in this part of the world. Bighorn is another parallel vein. So in terms of the potential of where this could go, obviously we're talking about the 2019 resources of 500,000 ounces in this space right here. We're going to be expanding on that, but we have to get out here to the west and to the east and address that in the near term. And then we'll also be addressing the more further afield exploration targets as we go forward.
Okay, so a lot of exploration targets then, essentially.
Absolutely. I mean, this is actually evolving into an exploration story with a backstop of value of a producing mine. And this actually goes into where we were before. When you and I first met, Corey, we were talking about the Sterling and Northern Empire, and we had exploration upside with the backstop of value of a permitted mine. This is a bit of empire on steroids of a backstop of value of a producing mine. So we've got a bit more punch to us where we are right now.
Okay.
Some of the execution. This is where we were talking about earlier. These holes. This is that saddle zone between the west pit and the east pit and the center pit. So some very nice numbers there. Increasing the land package. We always like the exploration upside, and we're able to get more. And then again, this is another look at the 3A leach pad. They've actually started to stack a conveyor corridor out this way, and we're going to be starting to stack on this cell fairly shortly.
Thank you.
Right.
One more. Hey, Mark, just to let you know, you're not the only one listening out there, and we will get to your questions, especially on production guidance. We're just not there yet. We're talking exploration, so I'll get to your questions.
Wonderful. Obviously, the staking, we actually there was new showings that nobody had ever known about, but we were able to see them off of Google Earth. Actually, it's a fairly, as you can see, the veins outcrop on surface. The other thing that we did is it's just a data review of the district, and there was several dozen historic mine occurrences that were documented in the records, and we were able to stake the vast majority of them with the new land package. So there's a lot of investigation and a very prolific district that we've been able to consolidate here. We're going to start getting our West Oatman drilling in, and then there's a high potential there with all these showings that there's going to be additional discoveries on the new property and beyond, or on the existing property and the new property.
What's the budget for a lot of this exploration here, Mike?
Oh God, we're doing a 30,000 meter drill program right now, and we're looking at all in probably 150 bucks a meter. So it's a big chunk of dough. In terms of the actual grassroots exploration, it's fairly cheap. It's just geos and hammers and samples going out there and seeing what we have. The hyperspec work that we did, I think, was about $50,000. So it's very, very cheap on this point. But we're going to get into the resource expansion, looking at that right now, and see where we go. This slide is actually really compelling. Sorry, I just got to find my my little graphic. Oh, here we go. So this is the west pit, and we're looking at all the blast holes here working down into the resource. If you look at the west pit, it's actually not confined geologically, it's confined by drilling. So all of this big broad area of silicified rocks is open for expansion of the west pit. There's some fairly significant drill holes out in here. And this is actually all permitted for mining, this strike length. This is about 370 feet of about a half a gram of gold starting at surface that is just out there and well away from any mining and resources. So there's a big strike extension. There's the gap in the resource between the center and west pit. There needs to be a little bit of drilling done here. There's a gap in the drilling between center and east. And then the east is open for expansion as well. So it's a lot of low-hanging fruit. We're going to see these pits dive down and then expand out to the east and to the west, and then working more in and out of the page on more on the exploration targets.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, keep moving. Let's go.
Okay, I don't have time on mine. This is okay.
Yeah, we're doing well.
Okay, good. So this is the new land package. The original land package was about like this. So we're able to quad it. There's some good looking rock out in this part of the world. I've actually been out there personally. There's some surface, some showings up in here, but this is what really was attracting. All these gold squares and dots are gold and silver occurrences. So grabbing all of this ground, all of these structures that are driving this mineralization, that was a key strategy for us. And now we've got the ground and can begin to articulate what each of these showings actually is. There's a lot of work to be done. That here is the Moss Mine. So a lot of upside potential to be articulated. These are some of these hyperspec anomalies that we were looking at earlier. There's probably another mineralization centered around here, another one here. So lots of upside to be had on this property right now.
Okay. You guys seem like you're really focused on the exploration here. Hey, you're seeing a lot of opportunity of growing this asset.
Well, that's going to be one of the drivers of value, Corey, is the growth of the asset is going to be the key, and the growth of the resource. The upside potential is enormous on this. This area here, this is called Oatman. It's a small town. This is the largest gold silver district in Arizona. This produced about 2 million ounces back in the 1910s, 1920s. And then it kind of got forgotten. I mean, Nevada happened, Comstock happened, all the things happened in Nevada, but it was largely forgotten. And we were able to look at all of this potential and grab it all. And so first mover, forgotten asset, being a bit outside of the box was a good way to be. It's worked successfully for our group in the past. Again, Newmarket, Northern Empire, Caliber, being that first mover in forgotten areas, bringing and looking at the exploration potential and seeing what the upside is and being able to bring that out to the market. So that's where, as you say, I'm really excited about the upside of this project right now.
So that, I guess, leads into a bigger question. I was going to save this for the end, but let's have this little conversation now because it's getting sent in a few times. Is the strategy here to keep the mining operation more or less running status quo, show the potential of exploration, and maybe build ounces to become a takeover target? Or is it to grow those ounces through exploration as well and become a larger mining entity?
I get that question a lot. So, I mean, it really is, take a step back, and if you look at the management and board, we're in the business of mining and exploration. And so my job is to create shareholder value. That's every day what it is. And I'm not married to increasing production or making a big discovery. It's about increasing shareholder value. Now, I've got several levers to pull to increase shareholder value. Obviously, we're exploring, and then we have an opportunity that we could be able to move the mine up in terms of what its throughput and annual production is. In terms of what's going to happen, I can only control so much. Are we going to be a takeover target, or are we going to grow into a multi-asset producer? Largely, the market is going to dictate how that is. We're going to, as we articulate what Moss is, we're going to see an increase in value for shareholders, and we're going to bring it into a certain snack bracket of acquisition, potential acquisition by a certain group of companies. The junior producers, the mid-tier producers, they'll look at it and go, okay, this is interesting. If the market pushes our valuation too high, it's going to say that tier of producers can't afford it, so we're going to have to build it. And so having the bench strength that you look at of what we have on our board, guys that have put 10 million ounces into production, we protect ourselves from being able to, or being forced into any corner, into any scenario that we're going to sell, or that we're strictly builders. We have the diversity of the team to be able to say, this is the right moment for shareholders to create liquidity, pass it on if that's the right moment, or if the market dictates that we've got to drive forward and build it, we've got the bench strength to be able to build it. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. Keeping your options open, right? You guys have the team to build it, but if the right offer comes along, then you're not going to say no. You guys have sold companies too, so.
Exactly.
Okay.
So moving now, this is now onto Hercules. Hercules right now is going through a very interesting phase. We went through our drilling. We had a very successful phase 2 drill campaign. And when I say successful, both in terms of putting grade into the blocks, but it also was getting a geological understanding. Just quickly doodling here, the thought on Hercules was it was a classic epithermal Y. So this was cliffs and the Hercules showing. So I'm doodling a little bit, my handwriting is horrible. That was right here, that's what we thought. What happened when we did the drilling was that we found out that everything, all the structures are ring structures, and some of them are quite large. Another one right here, the Pony Meadows, pardon me, I'm doing this wrong, Pony Meadows Fault. There's a big collapse called there. We nailed down the geometry so that we got the mineralization to predictable. And that's a key thing in being able to build tons and ounces. You need to know where the gold is. We also came in with a big geophysical campaign, and there was 45 new targets that were identified in that geophysical campaign. So what we're doing right now is looking at all these targets, taking a step back as we're drilling down at the Moss and seeing what these targets are. There's new targets developing in this part of the world. This is a new one as well, Pony Meadows. And we're making sure that we've got the geology nailed down, and then be able to go in for a drill campaign late 2021, early 2022, to be able to articulate a bit more on the upside, getting that geometry, and then looking to do a resource or an initial resource drill program in 2022 up at Hercules. So that's the rough plan for Hercules right now.
Okay, Mike, quick question. Has that drill program for Hercules, was it postponed? Because someone sent in a note saying that they thought it was to start in late spring, early summer of this year.
No, that was, I mean, Potentially prior to the merger, there may have been talk of a program, but no, post merger, it's always been Q3 of this year, late this year, early next year.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In terms of the share cap, we actually had an instance where the share count actually went down. Part of the transaction, Eclipse did some work and bought shares that were held by Mavericks, and so we actually returned these shares to Treasury, and so we're working a bit lower than that. Big shareholders are obviously management and insiders. Doug and I are neck and neck as the two largest management shareholders. Greenstone is a UK fund. They're our single largest, and then the rest is retail. Convertible is held in friendly hands. It's a very low, reasonable coupon, 5% in 2026.
Mike, any comments on graduating up to one of the larger exchanges? It's, I think, been mentioned, and a few questions came in saying, is there a share consolidation plan? What is the overall plan to get uplisted on some of these exchanges?
Right now we're actively working on uplisting, largely our US listing. We're OTC pink essentially for our US listing. We're working on getting to the QX, and that actually, to an earlier question, what is happening with the pinks in the US right now is a lot of the retail houses are not allowing their clients to trade pink sheet stocks. And so that we're seeing probably a bit of pressure coming out as people are saying, if I can't trade this in September, I better get out of it now. So we're working to address that and uplist so that we can be held more easily by US shareholders.
What about analyst coverage too? Somebody noted that during the brokered finance, they were hoping to see some analyst coverage. They haven't seen any. Did they miss something? Is it still expected?
Stifel covers us. Alex, oh God, I always butcher his last name. Starts with a T, and I'll just stop there. So Stifel covers us. We've also had a challenge with dealing with COVID and getting people to site. So what we're working on right now is we're starting to book an analyst tour for later in September associated with the Colorado conferences. So we'll do Denver, Beaver Creek, and then bring down an analyst tour to site. So we have achieved that. So to answer your question, yes, one is out there. We do have analyst coverage, and we're trying to work towards getting more.
Okay, thank you.
ESG. This is a big factor in working in anywhere with the mining company in the world right now. We have been doing several initiatives for the company. One of the more impactful ones in terms of my opinion to the community, we just went off of grid power. Off of diesel power and went to grid power. We're using obviously less fossil fuels when we're not running the generators. It also helps us in terms of one of the things we're investigating doing is leaving our generators in place. They're there as backup for us, but they're also become backup for the community. So if the community starts to feel a brownout, our generators could kick in and feed back into the grid. We haven't finalized that now. That's something that we're investigating. We do the various community cleanups. This is the guys out on site cleaning up garbage along the access road. We've been sponsoring a wetland restoration in Bullhead City, and we also sponsor some of the trade shops for education, having people learning to work heavy duty mechanics and welders. We also have a pretty strong governance. Shout out to Dave Farrell, who is a very much one of our sticklers on the board for governance.
Okay.
So just to wrap it up, again, I don't know how we're doing for time right now. Vertex, it's that backstop of value of the fully operating efficient mine. We've got the exploration potential around the Moss, and we've got the potential to transition into a much larger profitable producer. We've got that first mover advantage both at Hercules and Moss, and this has been exploiting my history, my familiarity with the Walker Lane. huge land packages, allowing for really a lot of upside exploration potential at both the Hercules and the Moss, and a team that's done it before for shareholders.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Mike. Look, there's a number of questions that we're going to try to get to here. We're not going to be able to get to all of them because a lot of questions have come in, but I will be bringing Mike back on my show to address some of those questions. Let's talk a little bit about production. Do you have any estimates here in terms of all-in sustaining costs, general production guidance for Q3, Q4 of this year, or even into next year?
No formal guidance, I guess, is the best the road answer for that. Where I think that you look at where we are historically, Q3, Q4, we've been looking at all-in sustaining costs of around 1,000, 1,100 is what we've done. We have had a quarter or 2 quarters where we've been doing a large capital expenditure, which has impacted our all-in sustaining. We're pretty much putting that into the rear view mirror, and so you'll see a more normalized Q3, Q4 going forward.
Okay. Now, what about cash to move forward with all the exploration to balanced out with income or cash flow positive from the actual production?
Yeah, I mean, it really becomes a question of the rate of exploration as to how much our spend will be. So obviously we had the big spend associated with the 3A expansion, the pad expansion, and now it becomes the question of addressing the rate at which we want to explore and how that balances with our cash needs.
Okay. Now there's one other one in here regarding the royalties held on the Moss mine. Do you expect any of those royalty holders to be part of the expansion into Hercules?
Not sure if I fully understand the question, but
I think they're asking any sort of relationship here where they could be brought into the Hercules project as well. If it could be almost a combined entity of a royalty or upping a royalty from these royalty holders.
I think that's something that is technically possible, but it's not something that is really on the table right now. We think of Hercules and Moss as 2 separate entities, and probably would like to keep the royalties structure separate as well.
Fair enough. Can you give us a little bit more info on the royalties, especially when it comes to the Maverick stream for the silver upside component at the Moss mine?
Yeah. So what the Mavericks stream is currently, so they get 100% of the silver delivered to them for the first 3.5 million ounces after the deal was signed. We get 20% of the spot value back from them when we deliver it. After the 3.5 million ounce gets delivered, it steps down that it's a 50% of the silver gets delivered to Mavericks, and I believe that we still get paid 20% of that. So it's there, it's significant, and yeah, it's just something that the mine deals with.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Getting a little bit of pushback on your answer when it comes to plans to consolidate the shares, potentially upgrading to another exchange. Are you guys going to be consolidating the shares?
There's nothing formally planned at this point in time, but there are listing requirements that if we decide that we're going to uplist and we need to meet, then we would consider doing it at that point in time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Quick question then regarding production and the potential of doubling production, or at least even doubling the size of the crusher. Is there a time frame for production expansion and any significant costs that go along with that?
If that becomes part of the trade-off of studies of what we need to do, we need to be able to have the resources to be able to support a mining expansion. So it becomes sort of the staged approach of getting the mine stabilized first, resource expansion, and then considering mine expansion. It's all an iterative process from there.
Okay, it's a process. Mike, then look, we'll take care of a couple other questions in future interviews. This webinar is running to about our time frame right now anyway. Just wrap us up with news flow. What investors can expect here moving forward out of the company? A nice summary, please.
Yeah, I mean, this is, we've identified as largely going into an exploration story. So we're going, and we have 2 rigs turning on site. You're going to see exploration results throughout the summer. Towards the end of the summer, we're going to put out the technical report, resource update, and then where the Moss mine is going for the next several years given the current information, and then more back into exploration and results news flow throughout the fall and beyond.
Okay, Mike, thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody, for sending in your questions. I have them all saved, and we will take some of those, as I mentioned, in future interviews. You can always email me any further questions, fleck@kereport.com. I'll get Mike to address those to you personally and also record some interviews on the back of those. I'm sure there are going to be a number of questions as we follow up on this and as news rolls out. So everybody keep up to date. Mike, thank you again for your time. We'll set up another webinar if needed, but right now that's a lot of information to take in for where the company is going in the next really 6 to 12 months. Mike, thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much, Corey. I always appreciate talking to you.